But today, Dom, I want to talk about a couple of things. Obviously, we've got a mass shooting in Colorado, and Dom, I don't want to talk about that much.
Yeah, I know.
Seemingly, there's never any progress made, and we'll get there. And we're also going to have our good friend Scot Ross in the happy hour today after 5 o'clock. So we'll look forward to Scott, and we'll get to the Trump Twitter, right? Trump's back on Twitter, Dom.
Oh no, is he really? I haven't actually, once I heard that, I haven't used Twitter a whole lot since then. I know some people are getting off the platform. Yes, we'll have that conversation as well.
Well, some of us never really adopted the Twitter platform. Some meaning me. You've been tweeting out for the crew for some time, Dom, but most of the harshest of all the Devil's Advocates tweets, they all at Devil Radio come from Dom.
You're welcome.
Dominic, wanted to start today looking at the great state of Wisconsin. There's a reason I'm up here in the hinterland in the northwestern part of Wisconsin. I'm basically in the Minneapolis out market. And Amery, Wisconsin is quite a small community, a couple thousand. And earlier today, Dom, I ran up to Hayward. Hayward's the site of the Birker-Biner cross-country skiing race. And they told me it's a lot more than that. It is a thriving little community, Dom. But I want to start today, and hopefully you got this one. 6 questions the November 8th midterm elections answered about Wisconsin politics. Craig Gilbert, special to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Like every election, the 2022 midterm taught us some things about the political landscape. It taught us the polls can still be pretty good. It taught us when voters are broadly unhappy, they don't always take it out on the party in power. And it taught us that the partisan realignment behind Donald Trump's historic 16 victory is still ongoing. But in the big statewide elections, the voting trends that helped carry Trump to victory here 6 years ago may now be hurting Republicans in Wisconsin more than helping them. In a column last month, Gilbert talked, some political questions. He wants to revisit some of them now, Dom. Here are some of the questions. I'm going to need your help.
I got you, man.
Is the right track, wrong track a good election barometer? The answer, not so much. You hear me reference this one all the time, Dom. Right track, wrong track. If the Packers lose too many games, it could be decimating for an incumbent because the people in the state of Wisconsin would have the perception we're on the wrong freaking track. But Gilbert says, right track, wrong track, not so much. This is not just a nerdy polling question. It gets at something essential about this election and how it was that an unpopular president, persistent inflation, and a very unhappy electorate didn't produce big losses for the party in power. Only a third of Wisconsin voters thought the state was going in the right track, according to the last Marquette University Law School polls. Only 42% approved of President Joe Biden's performance in office. And despite these headwinds, Democratic Governor Tony Evers got reelected with 51% of the vote and won a bigger victory than he did in 2018 when he had the benefit of running with an unpopular Republican Trump in the White House. In the Senate race, Democrat Mandela Barnes came closer to defeating GOP incumbent Ron Johnson than expected. Dom, I hate when we reference moral victories. And when you consider how midterms are supposed to work, this is kind of backwards. History suggests that Democrats would take a bath here and nationally. Why didn't they? One explanation embraced by many strategists on both sides is that the Supreme Court's abortion decision overturning Roe v. Wade, the flaws and fringe quality of some very, let's call them Trumpy GOP candidates, Dom, and Trump's capacity to mobilize Democrats and alienate independents all leveled the playing field in this midterm. In the presidential exit poll, as many voters, 30%, cited opposition to the former President Trump as a factor in their vote, as cited opposition to the current President Biden. That is not a normal phenomenon. So 30% said they were voting against Trump, and about 30% he wasn't on the ballot. Said they're voting against the current president. A little bit more here, Dom. While Biden's approval has been mired in the low 40s, his job ratings turned out to be a deceptive election barometer. Pollster and political scientist Ken Goldstein flagged an unusual polling trend weeks before the election. that voters who disapproved of Biden included many were only mildly negative towards the president. That's like you half the time. And many of those voters were Democrats or independents who still planned to support Democratic candidates for Congress or governor. In national exit polls, these somewhat Biden disapprovers broke very slightly for Democrats, accounting for the gap between Biden's approval and how this party performed in many statewide elections. In a similar way, the right track, wrong track number turned out to be a poor election barometer, and therefore I'll only use it most of the time.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Michael.
But why don't we jump forward, Dom? Because
I'll jump on here. Crudy, another one. Bill Glaub reporting in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. 6 questions the November midterm answered about Wisconsin politics. Here is number 2, according to Bill. Will Wisconsin voters vote the same way for governor and senator? Well, obviously the answer is no, but Bill writes it is a close call. The decline of ticket splitting has increased the odds against split outcomes at the top of the ticket. That's when voters back one party for the U.S. Senate and another party for president or governor. It hasn't happened in Wisconsin since 1998. In that election, more than 20% of voters split their tickets for governor and Senate, according to the exit polls. In this election, fewer than 5% did. But it doesn't take much ticket splitting to get a split outcome if both elections are close, and that's exactly what happened. These elections were historically tight. Evers' 3.4 point victory was the second closest race for governor in Wisconsin since 1964. Johnson's 1 point victory was the closest race for U.S. Senate in Wisconsin since 1914, the first year that senators were elected by popular vote. There was only a 4-point gap in the margin of victory in these 2 races. The vast majority of voters backed the same party in both contests. According to the Wisconsin exit poll, only 1% of those who voted Democratic for U.S. Senate voted Republican for governor, meaning there were almost no Barnes-Michaels voters. And just 7% of those who voted Republican for Senate voted Democratic for governor, meaning there was a small group of Johnson-Evers ticket splitters. Ticket splitting didn't roar back, but there were enough ticket splitters to prevent the same party from winning both races. And Curdy, I'll jump on one more here. How will the political map change? The answer, the Trump realignment continued. Beginning in 2016, Wisconsin's smaller and more rural counties have gotten redder, and its bigger metropolitan counties have gotten bluer, reflecting a widening education gap, widening gap between religious and secular voters, and the chasm between more densely populated places and less densely populated places. The trends did not abate in 2022. Of the 15 counties, this is interesting, of the 15 counties that produced the most votes, 12 of them moved in a Democratic direction from the 2018 race for governor to the 2022 race for governor. Of the 40 counties that produced the fewest votes, 37 of them moved in a Republican direction, but the effects were not symmetrical. The vote shift in the 40 smaller counties produced a net Republican gain of about 17,000 votes over 2018. The vote shift in the 15 biggest counties produced a far larger net Democratic gain of about 87,000 votes. Most of this came from just 3 counties, the state's largest, Milwaukee and Dane, which got bluer, and Waukesha, which got less red. You're welcome. The growing gap between metropolitan and rural Wisconsin helped Trump win Wisconsin in 2016, but the rural shift was so dramatic in that particular election. But the same fundamental divide helped defeat Trump in 2020 and helped Democrats win the Wisconsin governor's race in 2018 and 22 because of the GOP's unchecked erosion in suburban Milwaukee and suburban Madison. Johnson survived this pattern in 2022, but his Senate victory margin was much smaller in 22 than it was in 10 or 16. And that change was driven by what happened in the state's biggest red and blue counties.
Dominic Crudy on the road again. I'm in beautiful Lake Air country, Amery, Wisconsin, playing out here on 1260 AM. Took her all the way up to Sawyer County in Hayward, Wisconsin, another small but thriving community in northern Wisconsin. And you know what, this area up here, very, very red, but it ain't going to be as red for much longer because we are putting inroads here, man. We are making impact in these communities. I'll tell you about a few of the people I've met up here, Dom. And I can tell you, not a single person that I've asked or spoken to through the course of the last 2-3 days, not a single one asked me about my politics. But the one guy, when I pointed out that I was, left of center, if you will, he was very, very excited. Come back with us, Devil's Advocates Radio Show If you are finding us for the first time, be very, very excited. Some say greatest show ever. Come back.
Frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out. But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, that frog will boil. As a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans, it's a story that rings true. We learn to endure the heat in silence. We apply what we learn to life, the bills, the job, the family, things we're expected to handle with ease. When life heats up around us, we just try to stay afloat. We let the water boil. Reaching out isn't easy, but you've never been interested in easy. You join because you are not afraid of hard work. You are not a frog. If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait until the water boils. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach. Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
Cardinal put out these weird, sad videos interviewing incapacitated elders in their nursing homes that don't have the ability to say, don't use me as your political prop.
If they are what you say they are, then you shouldn't be doing it how you did it.
Yes, it was the kids using the parents as props. Well, my old man hasn't talked since 76. Of course, he would have voted for Trump. That's the evidence. Videos, people that can't talk.
It is wrong. It's absolutely wrong.
Check out the entire podcast library at darnwi.com.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
When they go low, we get high. The Devil's Advocates.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open for your take as always. Happy Monday to us all. 844-967-2789.
Dominic, we'll get to the phones momentarily. Got to tell you, I'm in beautiful, I think it's Polk County. I'm in Amery, Wisconsin. I'm learning. I'm learning the back roads. I went up to Sawyer County. I went up to Hayward. That's, sort of big, musky lumberjack company country here in northern Wisconsin. Dom, we're looking forward to closing on and turning up a couple of these radio stations. And I got to tell you, the locals I've met up here, they love us already, Dom. They don't even know us, but to know us is to love us. I think we got probably a few new friends in Osceola listening in today. Hopefully some people here in Lake Country, 1260 AM listening in Amery. And I can tell you, you can hear this signal, and it's going to get bigger and better in about 2 weeks, Tom. But this signal, I heard it most of the way, all the way up to Hayward, which is about 90 minutes northeast of where I'm currently located. I've been there and back today. And Dom, the people I met here, the main streets are thriving. I did go into a Packer bar yesterday that
it's work. You got to check out, see what the locals are doing, right?
Well, I did. I went into a a Viking bar in Osceola.
Every
TV. Yes, I misspoke. A Viking bar.
Oh, they had a tough day
there
yesterday, man.
I know. I stayed for one cocktail. And the bartender was really quite good, but he offered me a menu, and I looked at the score, and it was like 20-3, and I'm like, maybe not.
Man, the NFL cut away from that game and played the other game at halfway through the third quarter. It was a blowout.
I was listening to K-Fan, which is one of the best talk stations, sports talks in the nation out of Minneapolis, and they were quite miserable. But it was an opportune time to go to the Dallas house. I got to tell you, in this part of the world, some of the best steak and seafood I've had recently. So I went there last night. I've eaten like a big dog here.
You've had a lot of steak and seafood recently, Curtis, so I trust your judgment.
Well, I do like to partake, if nothing else. That's, I ate one company meal since I've been here. That was the one. But I also ate at Farm to Table, and I've eaten at the family restaurant here in Amery. And, the fare's been good, yummy. It's been good. The people have been quite nice, Dom. And as mentioned, as I go out and meet people on Main Street, and I tell them, hey, we're coming to your town, and we're going to try and restore the quality of local radio. And Dom, it's been a wonderful embrace by these local communities because they miss it. If they don't have it, they miss it. Radio is so very important. A lady in town here today told me, I live in Amery and it's great, but I go 4 miles outside of town and I can't get broadband internet. The radio is her lifeline. I mean, if she can't listen to the Packers, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And the guy I talked to yesterday, I told him, we're a Badger station up here. This guy's a big sports fan. You could tell. He had actually, where did he go to college? He, River Falls, which I won't hold against him. A couple of lacrosse grads ourselves now. But meeting people, they're very friendly people, as I would expect in Wisconsin. I've gone in, I've introduced myself, and literally within a matter of minutes, Tom, I feel like I've made some friendly acquaintances, and they've all been very helpful. They've tried to point me towards some real estate and some local people, which could be talent that could join civic media at some point in the future. But it's nice and refreshing that not a single one of them's asked me my politics. The only guy I admitted my politics to is the guy that had a Joe Biden mug on his shelf. But first I asked him if it was his Joe Biden mug. He said it was.
All right, so they didn't bring up politics to you, Crudy. Did you bring up politics to them?
Only when necessary. Only when necessary.
And how do you determine what is necessary? I mean, you didn't lead with that, obviously.
No, because it is not my job to change your mind in a direct way. But it is my job, I feel like, Dom, is we're up here and we're trying to build out radio facilities. This station here had been literally off the air. This community felt abandoned for lack of a radio station. If it weren't for my partner and his financial commitment to putting the right tech in, to putting the right big transmitters, they're expensive machines. But when this thing comes out the other end, this community can be proud that it's represented. And as he told me, as different people told me, the Chamber of Commerce told me, there are certain communities that have more going on than others, but all these little towns, if you live in a town of 2,000, Dom, every weekend is not festival weekend in your town. And if you don't want to go bored to tears, I mean, if you like to fish, Dom, lots of lakes. But if you're looking for a good time on a Friday or a Saturday night, all these little communities do round robins and they invite each other in. It was so funny today. I'm leaving Hayward today and I'm driving under a railroad bridge. And obviously the high school kids, the class of 22, would come all the way to Hayward to write spooter blows on the railroad bridge. These back little community battles. It's like the Hatfields and the McCoys in a positive sort of way. It was, spooter blows. It could have been a lot worse, Dom. But anyways, it's been refreshing. And I know that this part of the state is about 65% red currently. It ain't going to stay that way, Dom. I guarantee it, man. It cannot stay that way when the Devil's Advocates are out here making friends all over, northwestern Wisconsin, as the case may be.
Crudy on the road again. Love it, man. I love to hear what's going on out there. I love the fact you're out there putting the miles in, setting these things up. It takes effort. It takes work. It's more than just the money. It's an effort of a full team of people to get it up and running. And of course, we got to have the programming and the production to get it all out there, and the phone lines to talk to the people at 844-967-2789. We'll take some calls. We have Don Browne checking in, of course. Today, the 1-year anniversary of the Waukesha Christmas parade tragedy. We'll discuss more of that with you. And again, our friend Scot Ross at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. Once again, 844-967-2789. We are the Devil's Advocates all over Wisconsin, all over the United States, all over the world. Coming back with your calls just a minute. We'll be right back.
In the dust that was a city, if I could find a souvenir just to prove the world was here, and here it is, a red balloon. I think of you, let it go.
Hey, yes, man's in town.
Yeah, probably. When you're gonna turn on the radio, you gotta listen to Devil Radio 92.7.
Do you want Wisconsin to suck? I don't. That's why you're listening to me now. I'm Hawk, owner of the Jade Monkey. Come to the Monkey and tell them you're there because the devil sent you. Then I can spend more money on ads and help Devil Radio keep Wisconsin from spiraling into post-apocalyptic Republican suckage. I mean, that's Iowa's job. Buy a round of the Jade Monkey and save Wisconsin one drink at a time.
Suck down drinks so we don't have to suck.
Okay.
You know what I love about Devil Radio listeners? You don't shy away from talking about what's important to you. And when you choose Evolution Financial to manage your wealth, you're gaining a partner who will truly listen. If you're looking for a fee-only, fiduciary, independent financial advisor who's also a certified financial planner professional, contact me, Sue Peck. Do a search for Evolution Financial Madison, and if you fill out my contact form and tell me you heard me on the radio, I'll send you a scheduling link just for Devil Radio listeners.
Evolution Financial is a registered investor.
I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. A man opened fire on a crowd inside a gay nightclub late Saturday night in Colorado Springs, killing 5 people. 18 other people were hurt, 17 shot. Sabrina Aston's 28-year-old transgender son, Daniel, was one of the 5 killed.
I'm almost positive it's a hate crime because it's the anniversary of the Orlando, Florida killing at the LGBT club.
22-year-old Anderson Lee Aldrich faces 5 murder and a number of other charges. He's hospitalized with non-specified injuries. Questions have been raised about why authorities didn't use the state's red flag laws to take Aldrich's guns away from him in 2021, following his arrest in a standoff with police after his mother reported he threatened her with a homemade bomb and other weapons. There's no public record prosecutors ever moved forward with charges from that incident. I'm Tim McGuire.
We tried Dynovite for gut health and immune support, and after a couple of weeks, our little Gizmo was acting like a puppy again. His coat was shinier, he had a lot less scratching and shedding, and he seemed like his happy old self.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Get 10% off your next order of Dynovite nutritional supplements for dogs at Dynovite.com.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Need a great holiday gift for that special someone? Shop Untuckit's Black Friday early access and grab the perfect style at up to 50% off. Untuckit shirts are designed to be worn untucked. They keep him looking sharp and feeling comfortable. Save big on our iconic button-downs, super soft flannels, and cozy sweaters during our biggest sale of the year. Shop Untuckit's Black Friday early access sale today for up to 50% off at untuckit.com or 80+ stores. Untuckit, shirts designed to be worn untucked.
For Civic Media, I'm Terry Bell with this news. Milwaukee has set a new record for homicides in a year. 194 people were killed in Milwaukee as of Saturday, surpassing last year's mark of 193. Police say the homicide rate is 13% higher this year than last year. The Wood County Sheriff is asking deer hunters to be on the lookout for human remains in wooded areas. Hunters, hikers, and farmers sometimes help crack cold cases when they come across unmarked graves. Today marks 1 year since the Waukesha Christmas parade tragedy that killed 6 people, wounded dozens of others, and scarred the entire community. Flags across Wisconsin are at half-staff in remembrance. Governor Evers says the anniversary is also a chance to remember and honor the bravery of those who helped that day. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM, WTTN 1580 AM.
Save the $2 on tomorrow's paper. Listen to the Devil's Advocates today.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Crudy on the road again up here in Polk County, Amery, Wisconsin, Lake Air Country. Getting on the road in the morning. Dom, I'll be back in the Madison studios when Judge Chris Taylor, one of our favorites, joins me in studio. She is running for the appellate court. And Dom, right now, we are going to go live to our colleague, Don Browne. You're in Waukesha, WAUK 540 AM, the Shaw 101.1 FM. And Don Browne is one of our fine hosts, the host of This Week in Waukesha, and also the play-by-play host of many of the sports events that originate from Waukesha. And Don, you were at the site of the Christmas parade vigil in Waukesha. Don, what's going on, man?
That's correct, Mike. I'm here at Cutler Park. We got a really nice turnout. Many of the victims and their families are here. Just spent some quality time with the Teagues family. He's going to be on the show this Saturday. On the Cutler Park stage, the Les Paul Performance Center stage, we've got Police Chief Daniel Thompson, Mayor Sean Riley, who's expected to make the opening comments, Fire Chief Steve Howard, Governor Tony Evers here, and Father Pat Hoppy of the Waukesha Catholic Faith Community, who was also one of the victims from the parade last year. So it's great to see such a strong turnout. The city buildings were all closed at 4 o'clock today so that the employees could take time to reflect and also participate in the vigil. So we had a few minutes. The mayor will be starting at 4:39, which is the exact time the events took place, the tragic events of last year. So again, it's a great example of a Waukesha Strong is what we see here today, Mike.
And Don, let's talk about this Christmas parade tradition. I mean, until it was struck with tragedy last year, this was a great community event, something that I suspect Waukesha looked forward to every year. It was about a year ago at this time that I partnered, and I was in a transaction to purchase a station in Waukesha, and this tragedy happened. And we made a commitment to being part of Waukesha. Our studios, where Dom's broadcasting from right now, is on the Waukesha Parade Ground. That's going to come on December 4th this year, but this marks the 1-year anniversary. Tell us more about sort of how the community is doing at this stage, Don, 1 year later.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's timely that the trial finally ended when it did last week, so we can put that all behind us. Just a lot of optimism, a lot of support. Again, I'm standing next to the Teagues family. They're getting a lot of hugs and handshakes and embraces from different members of the community. You're right about the parade. This will be the 59th annual parade that's coming up on December 4th, and it's right out of that parade. If you remember the movie The Christmas Story, a lot of joy. It's always freezing cold, but that doesn't hold anybody back. Kids of all ages, 1 to 99, celebrating together. It really is a great tradition. What's different about this coming year, Mike, is that normally it's the Sunday after Thanksgiving, to kind of ring in the holiday shopping season. And the city decided to push that back a week to the 4th. So for the first time, perhaps ever, it's going to be the first Sunday in December as opposed to that Sunday before Thanksgiving. And I think perhaps because it is a little too close to the anniversary date might be one of the reasons. The other reasons may be for just support and planning for the city. And, they do a good job in these types of things. So we're looking forward to a great parade and really excited that Walk Radio will be covering it. And, that, again, we're going to continue being Waukesha Strong, and that the victims, they remain in our hearts as witnessed by tonight's turnout. And really every day, they're handing out the blue light bulbs, but the blue light bulbs honestly have been on all year round. So it's just great to see, this community remaining strong and continuing strong into the future.
Don, of course, a terrible tragedy for everyone involved, and no sense of justice can, really bring anybody back, and it's very difficult for all the family members and friends and ever the community to deal with. Don, but is it your sense that people, do they feel like justice has been served in this case?
I think so. When you look at the amount of years, again, I'm standing next to the Teagues family, and Don had posted on social media that. He was pleased to see that the assailant got 17 and a half years for what he did to his son. And, with all the tragedy, especially that young Jackson Sparks, there's also been miracles and redemption hope. Eric Teagues was 5 feet away. He wasn't supposed to survive that attack. This young man was run over. And I'm talking right now, he's deciding which of the 3 schools he's going to be playing baseball for next year. Yeah. And just great kid, great family. His father's a lieutenant in the Caledonia Fire Department, and good friend of my son's. They play baseball together, and you talk about so hard to keep a good man down, and Eric Teagues and his family are shining example. They're going to be on my show this Saturday too, so Walk Radio Civic Media will get to know the Teague family much better on the Saturday morning show. So,
and Don, we're turning the clock here on 4:39. Don, I suspect the ceremony is going to begin.
Yeah, I see Mayor Riley starting to move around. He's pointing at some different people, looking for some support. It looks like he's heading towards the podium. Yep, here Mayor Sean Riley's about to speak. So, yeah, this is ready to begin. And there was really no program. I'll see what the mayor's saying here. I'll share a few brief comments, and I know you got to get back to your show. So he's reading the names of the 6 who were killed. He's mentioned the 70 others being, physically injured, and the hundreds more that have suffered trauma, emotional stress. So now he's asking for the moment of silence. And the mayor's ended the silence, saying we'll never forget.
Started out with a joyful celebration, changed to horror, shock, trauma. Immediately after the war, the community we can walk so strong today. As a community, we continue to work in healing. We're united together. We help those who need. We are standing with them.
Folks, you are listening to a very special vigil in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Mayor Sean Riley speaking, acknowledging the tragedy of this event that happened in Waukesha. Don't know if you can hear me, Don. It's not translating great for our radio audience, but we certainly appreciate you being there live on the scene for us, Don. Obviously, we know that this, 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, tune in This Week in Waukesha, hosted by Don Browne and the Teagues family. This week in particular will be a very special show. And then next Sunday, WAUK Radio will broadcast live from the new version of the Waukesha Christmas Parade. Hopefully a new, happier version, Don. But the vigil goes on in Waukesha. Don, we appreciate you taking us there today.
Likewise. Thanks, Mike, and thanks for keeping Waukesha in your hearts, everybody. Bye for now.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Obviously, Waukesha has become part of our family, Don. We had WRD there for about 4 or 5 years, and our office was in Milwaukee, and our facility was in Waukesha. But now we're all committed. We're all in. We are on the Waukesha Parade route on Wisconsin Avenue, and on Sunday, December 4th, which will be my son's 19th birthday, I'll probably spend my afternoon in Waukesha acknowledging the people in that town, Dom, and the parade, and hopefully a more optimistic Christmas parade going forward. But certainly a somber Christmas parade as well. How could it not be?
Yeah, just really heart goes out to everybody, the families and of the victims, and you kind of cry for humanity in some respects too, man. We see continual tragedy go on. This time here in Waukesha with the parade, we've talked about the numerous shootings out there, and a failure of society in some regards. If we look at what could have maybe have been done with this guy and his low bail, would anything have changed, or some of these other shootings, if the red flag law, and if this and if that, if they didn't get a weapon, would things have changed? And we can't go back and undo any of that, but it's certainly, we have to ponder those questions and hopefully use wisdom to guide our future decisions, knowing what we're capable of doing to ourselves. Humanity is certainly a flawed species, capable of so much good and so much tragedy.
Well, Dom, as we did a live listen-in, again, thank you to Don Browne, former Waukesha Alder, current host of This Week in Waukesha, and a lot of the Waukesha sports content originating out of WAUK. But as we tune in for that anniversary of the carnage from a year ago, Dom, as I observed CNN, there is currently a live news conference going on. Obviously, over the course of last weekend, there was a deadly nightclub shooting at an LGBTQ nightclub in Colorado Springs, Colorado. My understanding, at least 5 dead, 20 plus injured. And it was actually the patrons of the nightclub that disarmed the shooter ultimately, Dom. But this, I've told you, and you know this going in today, I don't know how to have this conversation any longer, because thoughts and prayers are just so unfulfilling. There's nothing we can argue about with another mass shooting, another tragedy that ever seems to move the Republican electorate. They're okay. It's like they're willing to accept carnage in exchange for some sort of Second Amendment freedom unrestrained. And it's just too hard for me to have these conversations at this late hour sometimes, Tom. And I realize we do talk shows, so we got to talk.
I know, man.
But I don't know what I can possibly say, what this press conference can possibly shed light on, other than the fact that some people in this world are motivated by hate. And Darrell Brooks, you could claim this is some person that was out there motivated, just by, let's call it mental psychosis, some sort of overwhelming emotion, fleeing from the police, something of that sort. But if I understand the story as it's being reported out of Colorado Springs, Tom, that sprang entirely from hate. That crime springs from bigotry and hatred. And I'm not saying, if someone's dead, they're dead. The tragedy is just as strong. The grief is just as felt. But when someone targets another group out of pure hatred, Dom, that seemingly takes these crimes to a whole different level. Someone asked, why didn't Darrell Brooks get a hate crime multiplier? Because it wasn't the motivation, seemingly. But this newest crime out in Colorado Springs, don't be surprised if a hate crime multiplier isn't in effect. That's exactly what we're talking about when we discuss hate crimes.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. We're taking a quick break, coming back with your calls, 844-967-2789.
I grew up hearing that women are bad with money, but I pay bills and take care of my family, so I'm pretty good with money. And now I'm taking control of my financial future by saving for retirement. Jumpstart your retirement savings at WeSaySaveIt.org. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
We stand on the shoulders of the women who came before us.
Women who were told they were bad with money. Women who couldn't even get a credit card without a man co-signing.
Women who fought for their own financial futures.
And now it's our turn to lead the way.
Join us at WeSaySaveIt.org,
where women of all ages and all budgets are learning how to save for retirement.
You work hard.
You make money.
Now make that money work for you.
Invest in yourself at WeSaySaveIt.org.
A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Douglas LaFollette. Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Good to be here, Mike. Across the country, in most every state, the Secretary of State is the person who is in charge of the election. And we've seen lots of hanky-panky in Florida back during the Al Gore elections, in Ohio and Georgia and Arizona and Michigan.
We appreciate you coming around, sir.
Check out the entire podcast library at darnwi.com.
Here's that song again. Here's that song again. For the 100th time today, here's that song again. It's gonna be stuck in your head all day. Here's that song again. It will make you cray, cray.
You love your kids enough to watch that TV show a bajillion times. Love them enough to make sure they're in the right car seat for their age and size. Show them you love them. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Life had a remote control. You could pause or rewind. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. Take the 1-minute risk test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
The Devil's Advocates. Never personal, only politics.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Phone lines open 844-967-2789. Crudy, just a little bit here from the Associated Press regarding the shooting. Here's what the AP has to say. The man suspected of opening fire at a gay nightclub in Colorado Springs being held on murder and hate crime charges on Monday. Online court records show that the 22-year-old, I'm not going to say his name, faced 5 murder charges and 5 charges of committing a bias-motivated crime, causing bodily injury in Saturday night's attack at Club Q. He remained hospitalized with unspecified injuries. The charges are preliminary. Prosecutors have not yet filed them. The hate crime charges would require proving that the gunman was motivated by bias, such as against the victim's actual or perceived sexual orientation or gender identity. The attack was halted when a patron grabbed a handgun from Aldrich, hit him with it, and pinned him down until police arrived minutes later. Wow. I mean, such heroism in such a disaster. So there you go. Hate crimes additional to the murder charges as discussed, Gertie.
Dominic, we obviously checked in Waukesha. I know you're broadcasting from WAUK 540 AM in the Waukesha studios, downtown Waukesha, acknowledging a vigil going on there 1 year since the tragedy of the Waukesha parade. But Dom, a few more local headlines, and while there's still time before our good friend Scot Ross joins us in the happy hour, and I guarantee you, I'm going to feel a little happier. I might crack a little drink here, Dom, and celebrate the glorious victory of Doug LaFollette, Secretary of State. Dom, election denier Amy Loudenbeck has acknowledged and conceded her loss to Doug LaFollette, the venerable Doug, our friend. Now, Secretary of State Doug LaFollette for like the 22nd consecutive time.
A spokesman for State Rep Amy Loudenbeck said she would not seek a recount in the tight race. Quote, obviously, the general election did not turn out the way we hoped it would. Unofficial results show LaFollette won by 7,660 votes, a margin of 0.3%. Loudenbeck's campaign previously said she was awaiting the results of the official canvass, which concluded on Monday. Another quote, the feeling of disappointment is real, but so is the gratitude I have for the thousands of Wisconsinites who supported me in this campaign for Secretary of State. I have no regrets on how we ran our campaign or how hard we worked. LaFollette declared victory last Thursday, but Loudenbeck did not concede at that point. So she waited till the canvass was done, and now it's the case. LaFollette, 82 years old, was first elected as Secretary of State in 1974 and served a single term before mounting an unsuccessful challenge for lieutenant governor, won the race in 82 for Secretary of State, and has served continuously in the position since then.
Dominic, when Doug first became Secretary of State, I was still watching Sesame Street. Now with the kids or the, perhaps future Crudy grandkids, But for realsies, for myself, still learning the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s.
So, what do you think? Do you think this whole BS on election fraud and stop the steal, all this stuff is diminishing? I mean, certainly maybe not Kerry Lake in Arizona, but everywhere else seems to be kind of going as it should.
Well, because normally after an election, somebody wins, somebody loses, they count the votes, and people move on and people govern, right? Until Donald Trump, it mostly worked that way. The reason we're not seeing a lot of that, stolen, rigged, is because the races weren't even close in most cases. The Trump endorsed, the election deniers, they're so Trumpy, they're so MAGA. The vast majority of general election candidates couldn't garner enough support. Look at Tim Michels. Tim Michels was the Trump endorsed gubernatorial Republican candidate here, right?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't that close. Now, if Ron Johnson had lost by 27,000 votes, we'd be doing recounts and talking about rigged elections. Tom, I feel quite confident.
When you pay the attorney a retainer, you got to use them at some point, right? Otherwise, it's just what? Hush money?
I guess it could be construed as such. Dominic Charlie Sykes, until, I guess 4 or 5 years ago, the opportunistic Charlie Sykes, now with the Bulwark and some radio outlet, not in Milwaukee, said a bevy of potential Republican presidential candidates stood up to challenge Donald Trump over the weekend. And anti-Trump conservative Charlie Sykes said there was something different this time. Do you think does it feel different, Dom? Republicans with their own White House aspirations made clear over at this weekend's Republican Jewish Coalition Conference, the party should move on from former president who announced his 2024 campaign last week. And Sykes told MSNBC's morning show that Trump's gambit had failed to pay off. Don't tell CJ. Here's what Charlie said. Donald Trump did not sweep the field by preemptively getting into the race. Nobody backed away, if in fact he did have an iron grip on the party, and he is still the dominant force in the party. You would have thought that other candidates would have backed away from a direct challenge. Dominic, they didn't. However, Sykes said Republicans haven't turned the page just yet. So the other candidates, they sense weakness, but the base, they still love them some Trump, Dom. Here's what Charlie said. Listening to my good friend Paul Ryan, and I wish he would have said these things a long time ago. You'll notice he's confining himself to saying that Trump is a loser. I think this is important that Republicans, I think this is a significant development. Republicans are now saying we need to turn the page. We need to move on. He will lose for us, and maybe that will hit with primary voters. But then he was asked the question, what if Donald Trump became the president again? What would that mean? And he's not willing to say Donald Trump is unfit to be president of the United States. He is unwilling to say that it's not just a matter of winning and losing, but that this is a man who lacks the character to be president of the United States, that he does pose an existential threat to our democratic order. So I wonder whether or not it's necessary that Republicans notice he's a loser, but I wonder whether it's sufficient, because if you're going to continue to say he was a great president and I was proud to work with him, it's all about losing. I'm not sure that's going to be enough to dethrone Donald Trump. Do you get the point there, Don? It's not just that he's a loser, which he is. It's that Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. It's not just time to turn the page. It's time to scorch earth the former. At least that'd be my opinion. But
well, I mean,
I
it's
kind of
one
like
thing.
to see
Yes,
him on the ballot.
he's definitely a loser. And the good news is if he divides the Republican Party, as he seems to do, the Republican Party is in disarray. He'll never get close to the halls of power once again. And so therefore he can be as crazy as he wants, but if he bangs his hell against the cell wall, they'll just give him a padded cell wall.
Yeah, but Merrick Garland could have brought those indictments with her without special counsel.
Oh, now
I'm
your
still a
boy
little
Alvin
bitter.
Bragg in New York, Curdy.
Oh, now he gets
I
courageous.
told you, man. He's waiting for someone else to do the lifting. Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. Our pal Scot Ross going to join us at the top of the Happy Hour, plus your calls, 844-967-2789. Stick around.
This is Chad Spade. In 1992, I moved to Madison to pursue a PhD at UW, and I started a residential remodeling company called Chad's Carpentry. I was eager to make a difference, to change the world, and I soon realized that our remodeling company was a great place to start. We pride ourselves on understanding how houses work so that your home improvement project actually improves your home. And we love what we do. To learn more, go to chadsdesignbuild.com. And thank you, Madison, for 30 great years.
You wanted information as election results rolled in, and the Civic Media network of radio stations delivered it live.
I was so impressed with your coverage, and I listened to you guys, and I got all the coverage. It was amazing.
Civic Media, the only network with news reporters and show hosts stationed across Wisconsin, sharing political insight not found anywhere else. Elections or anytime, we are here for you, your local Civic Media radio stations, and streaming on the Civic Media app.
You are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the Devil Radio app.
AP News, I'm Tim McGuire, the owner of Club Q, where 5 people were killed, 18 others injured late Saturday night in Colorado Springs, Colorado, tells KRDO-TV.
Giving people a sense of home, a sense of safeness, a sense of ability to come out, to be themselves, to not be harassed by others, and be able to find their gender, find their sexuality without the judgment of others.
22-year-old Anderson Lee Aldrich faces 5 murder charges and 5 charges of committing a bias-motivated crime causing bodily injury in Saturday night's attack. Questions have been raised about why the state's red flag laws weren't used by authorities a year ago when his mother reported he threatened her with a homemade bomb and held police at bay before surrendering during a standoff. There's no public record prosecutors ever moved forward with charges from that incident. 1 person is dead, 16 others hurt when an SUV crashed through the front window of an Apple store in Hingham, Massachusetts, southeast of Boston. Plymouth District Attorney Tim Cruz.
This morning was an unthinkable morning, and people are trying to get through it and process what happened.
Cruz didn't release the name of the driver, who is male, or the victims. He also didn't say whether the driver would face charges as a criminal investigation is being conducted. Prosecutors in the Trump Organization's criminal tax fraud trial rested their case today, earlier than expected, pending hopes for convicting Donald Trump's company, largely on the word of 2 top executives who cut deals before testifying that they schemed to avoid taxes on company-paid perks. Wales tied the U.S. 1-1 on a penalty kick late in their World Cup matchup. The U.S. is back in the tournament after missing 2018. Wales hasn't played in the World Cup since 1958. The U.S. plays England Friday. Wales takes on Iran. This is AP News.
We tried Dynovite for gut health and immune support, and after a couple of weeks, our little Gizmo was acting like a puppy again. His coat was shinier, he had a lot less scratching and shedding, and he seemed like his happy old self.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Get 10% off your next order of Dynovite nutritional supplements for dogs at Dynovite.com.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Need a great holiday gift for that special someone? Shop Untuckit's Black Friday early access and grab the perfect style at up to 50% off. Untuckit shirts are designed to be worn untucked. They keep him looking sharp and feeling comfortable. Save big on our iconic button-downs, super soft flannels, and cozy sweaters during our biggest sale of the year. Shop Untuckit's Black Friday early access sale today for up to 50% off at untuckit.com or 80+ stores. Untuckit, shirts designed to be worn untucked.
Salvatore's Tomato Pies, home of Madison's best farm-to-table pizza, is hiring. We are seeking line cooks, prep cooks, dishwashers, pizza makers, bartenders, servers, delivery drivers, and hosts. Sal's offers great pay, free shift meals, pay time off, and health insurance available for those working 30 hours a week. Students are welcome too. Positions available at all locations, Madison, Monona, and Sun Prairie. Stop into any location for an immediate interview or apply online at salvatorestomatopies.com.
Pat Slattery here of Slattery's Automotive Service. Winter's coming, and that means now's the time for you to start thinking about snow tires. Travel winter roads with ease on Hakkapeliitta snow tires. Hakkapeliitta is the top-of-the-line snow tire, made in Finland and eco-friendly. If it's snowing, they'll get you there. Give me a call at 608-848-6123. Automotive Service, your trusted choice for local service and repairs for all your automotive needs.
Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Hey,
good. What's happening?
Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Are you not hearing me?
Yes, sir. I've got you. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you.
Excellent. We are back in just under 2 minutes. Thanks for joining us today.
Great. Thanks for having.
Excellent.
To go down the wrong path. Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
Weather brought to you by the Joint Chiropractic Clinics in Madison. Catch their Black Friday specials now. Buy a package of 6, 10, or 20 visits before the end of November and get bonus visits for free. Head to the Joint Chiropractic and start feeling better today.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matnier with your headlines. The Wisconsin Department of Health Services announcing nursing homes will get a boost to help cover Medicare members' costs for next year. The current 77% cost coverage increases to 91%. The additional funding could reach nursing facilities in the next 60 days. The increase comes after recommendations from the governor's task force on caregiving, a significant amount of money going to direct care nursing and supporting the workforce in both wages and benefits. The pandemic brought attention to the long-term care infrastructure lacking. Many nursing homes have closed because of a lack of funding and staff. Wisconsin's aging population is expected to grow at a rate 6 times higher than the overall expected population increase in the state by 2040, intensifying the need for more nursing home beds and an increase in staff with the ability to provide a high level of care. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM, WTTN, 1580 AM.
Devil Radio programming is produced live in the Solidarity Realty Studios. Find them at solidarityrealty.com. Solidarity Realty. There is an alternative.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates radio show, rolling into the Happier Monday happy hour. Dom, as mentioned earlier, Crudy on the road, Amery, beautiful Minneapolis outmarket. Welcome to our KTNF 950 AM listeners. Welcome to our Lake Air 1260 AM listeners. And Dom, welcome to our fine guest for the hour. He is Scot Ross. He's a Twitter firebrand and a friend of ours. Scott, now that Trump's back on Twitter, man, do you feel like you have a new purpose in life?
I feel like I blocked him. I'm not, I don't want to see his stuff. I blocked him. I actually blocked Elon Musk too. I don't want to see his stuff either. So I'm choosing to resign in disgust rather than quit, I suppose.
Now, did they block you before you blocked them, Scott?
No. There's usually the people who block me, it's interesting, like at least people I know, noteworthy people I know who blocked me on Twitter are all like Republican members of the media, like George Stanley, the editor-in-chief of the Journal Sentinel. He blocked me in One Wisconsin Now when I used to work there long ago. And some of the other clowns. Chachi blocks me.
Chachi.
But he blocks everybody. I got that Travis Tritt block when he was doing that, when he was blocking everybody. Meghan McCain, who's you may have heard her father was John McCain. You may have heard her mention that one or 2 million times. Who else? Couple of the clowns from the New York Times. Anyhow, who cares about that? What's happening? We have a new day dawning here in Wisconsin. Thank goodness.
Scot Ross, I feel like I'm running for something, man. I'm traveling all 72 of Wisconsin's counties apparently this month. But we think it's very important. I don't know if you saw this during the elective cycle. The New York Times ran an article about Ron Johnson. And Ron Johnson had gone running to right-wing talk radio for 96 hours this year. Over 300 interviews, Scott. And we as Democrats wonder why it is that through the long course of an elective cycle, we always just seemingly sometimes come up a little bit short. And I would theorize, Scott, it might be because we don't have the same messaging platform. Well, I'd like to think that's changing, Scott. But when you look around at the outcome of the last election, the midterms, what do you see changing about the state of Wisconsin?
Well, I mean, I think you make a great point. Like the Democrats are completely and totally outgunned when it comes to the noise machine, the echo chamber, the opportunities to disseminate message that the Republicans have. And, the clowns on white nationalist radio throughout Milwaukee can literally say whatever they want. They can bring on Republicans. The mainstream media then will dutifully respond to comments that they make in these atmospheres in which it's not journalism, it's a right winger lobbing softballs at a right winger so that they get out their talking points. I'll say this about you guys, like you actually do ask questions and don't just take the company line, and have challenged, and I believe me on more than one occasion as to the forcing me to defend my viewpoint. You're not just like an echo chamber. But I think that we are, that's one vehicle in which we're outgunned on. I think Democrats, I'm saying Democrats are outgunned in that aspect. I think we're also outgunned because our people are less aggressive about trying to counter the Republicans in these different vehicles. Hate radio in Milwaukee, I don't know how many times I reached out to Charlie Sykes's producer and to his station manager and to, the head of whatever that radio network was, at Journal Communications, saying this guy's on the radio trashing me. I want to be on to defend myself. I want to be on to challenge that. And they responded that, I remember the one guy responded, I still have the email, where he said, he's not going to tell any journalist like Charlie Sykes who they have to have on their show. And Clan O'Donnell over on that other, Clavern radio station is no different in terms of their cowardice. They'll attack, but they won't have people on. You guys always used to have Ron Johnson on. I don't know, does he still come on your show?
We don't let him on anymore, man. We had a little following a while back, but I appreciate that, Scott. And yeah, we do try to have the conversation. I take the old adage, man. If you're sitting next to each other having a drink in a bar and you give me a line of BS, I'm going to challenge you on it. Or not you, but whoever it may be. That you got to have some credibility. You got to get a baseline for conversation, and that's what we certainly try to do. And all voices are welcome, all thoughts are welcome. But if they suck, we're going to call you out on it.
Yes, men are boring.
Right, the election, lot of money. I know you took some umbrage, Scot Ross, with what the finder's fee that the U'Lines and some of the big Hendricks, the big donors of Ron Johnson gave when he gave them a $250 million tax break. Scott, what's your impression on how much money, number one, is impacting elections generally, but this specific deal with Ron Johnson, Uihlein, and the Hendricks, what are your thoughts there, man? And how that affected this election?
Yeah, I mean, for years and years, we tried to do things, like McCain-Feingold or whatever, and pretend that was going to somehow help. But, like Jeff Goldblum said in the original Jurassic Park, life finds a way and money finds a way. No matter how you try and curtail it, it's like squeezing a balloon. It's going to pop out another end. And the thing, I think the challenge that you have is that Citizens United basically, and that was the decision, of course, that allowed 501c4s to do direct advocacy. That's the essential of, One Wisconsin Now was a 501c4, and we, prior to, not that we ever told you how to vote, but we could have after that. We chose not to, in protest of what the Supreme Court was doing. Plus, what was the point? There's enough Democrats I dislike. I don't want to, it didn't make any sense for the purposes of our organization. We were advocating for progressive advocacy, for progressive policies and ideas and values. And so what Citizens United did in changing the law so that 501c4s could do direct advocacy is it basically undid the balance of campaign finance laws in the state of Wisconsin. Because what happened is that, across the country, because corporate donations in Wisconsin are prohibited. There are campaign finance limits, and everything has to be disclosed. And Citizens United removed all of those things. So somebody like, Diane Hendricks, the wealthiest woman in Wisconsin, can write a check to a 501c4 organization and they can just spend whatever they want. We don't know it. It happens that they gave it to a super PAC because it was federal spending, which has different rules, than state spending. But that's, it's obscene. Let's say the numbers. Over the course of the Trump tax cuts, the Uihleins and Diane Hendricks stand to make $500 million, $500 million over the life of the tax cuts. What you reference is what they've gotten already. Okay.
Yes.
Ron Johnson specifically publicly extorted Trump to have the kinds of companies that Uihlein, Hendricks, and Ron Johnson operates, pass-throughs, be eligible for an enormous tax break that every financial analyst will tell you, top to bottom, is something that rich people do, not poor people, not the middle class. These companies are run by rich people and owned by rich people. And so he publicly extorted this tax break for them. Trump, said, oh, yeah, sure. Paul Ryan says we can do this. Hell yeah. Paul Ryan, who's from the same, neighborhood as Diane Hendricks. And as a result, they basically wrote, at least as far as we know so far, $30 million in campaign finance spending for the effort against Mandela Barnes and on behalf of Ron Johnson. And that was actually the gap between the two, in terms of the spending. But the idea that you could give somebody a tax break and they could turn around and basically underwrite your campaign is obscenity. It is obscene. And so,
Scott, let me jump in here for just a moment.
Yeah, please shut me up.
The Democratic Party has gotten quite good at raising gobs of money also, let's call it from Hollywood, from moneyed interest. Scott, how is that any different when Ben Wickler's raising $100 million or when a super PAC's doing it? And I realize different federal and state campaign finance laws, but it's direct corporate giving to a party, is it not?
Now, the corporate giving to the party is different. There is a segregated account that there are only certain things that you can spend, and you can only give $12,000 as a corporation to the party. And let's just say, remember, all these changes that allow this were made by Scott Walker and the Republican-controlled legislature. The Democrats, complained about, but I don't blame the Democrats for trying to compete and, superseding the Republicans when it came to that. But it's individual money that you're talking about that's going, Dom, Mike, that's going to the Democratic Party. There is, again, a very small segment, $12,000 per corporation you can get, and that only has specific uses that it can be. It can't be to put television ads up saying vote for for Tony Evers or anything like that. And I think there are the finance laws are even stricter for federal candidates, which is why when we were complaining about the DCCC and House Majority PAC leaving Brad Paff in Western Wisconsin high and dry, that it that it wasn't because it wasn't the party's fault.
Yeah. Scot Ross, our pal, firebrand. He's a Gemini, Mr. Ethics. You got a few more minutes for us on the other side of the short break?
Sure.
Absolutely. I want to get into that conversation in a little bit more detail. The Brad Paff, whose fault was it? Was it anybody's fault? Did the DCCC not step up enough? Did Ben Wickler do the right things? You do the right things, folks. We are the Devil's Advocates. That is Scot Ross, our pal. Going to stick around for just a little bit more. You can join us on the phones as well. Happy Monday to us all. The politics, they never stop. 844-967-2789. We will be right back.
Is it ever gonna be enough? Is it ever gonna be enough? Is it ever gonna be enough?
I'm 54, so basically, it's too late to start saving for retirement, right?
Not right. Starting to save, even in your 50s, can really make a difference.
Well, right now, saving seems hard to wrap my head around. Plus, with the way this year's been going.
Hey, listen, it's okay. You still got this. Just go to aceyourretirement.org. It's an online tool from AARP that can help you get your retirement savings on track no matter your age. It's free and only takes about 3 minutes.
I like 3 minutes.
Yeah, at aceyourretirement.org, you'll chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach. Just answer a few questions and you'll get a personalized plan and tips to help boost your retirement savings. Tips that are easy to understand and tailored to your lifestyle.
I like that too.
Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back. Just head to aceyourretirement.org and make your plan to start saving for retirement.
Thanks.
That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom. But Tom, we've been following a couple of big stories this week. Truck convoy leader has no idea where he is and is driving in circles around I-495.
He didn't know precisely where he was going anyways or where he was at the time. Apparently, he put the convoy back on the road, headed back up north, and he's back in Scranton. So I totally would have protested this tyranny, but damn, the traffic was so bad.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You know, you could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind, like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest.
Uh-oh.
Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
Kicking ass and taking names since the Wisconsin uprising. The Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines open. We'll get to you in just a bit at 844-967-2789. Our pal, Scot Ross, he's a firebrand. He's on Twitter, and he is also known as Mr. Ethics and a friend of the Devil's Advocate. Scott, thanks for sticking around, man. This Brad Paff, man, I mean, it was... And for a guy like Van Orden to become a congressman is just so offensive to me. And I want to get your sense. And we've had this conversation, but I always love your take, Scott. That's why you're here, man. DCCC versus Ben Wickler and the national Dems, the local Dems. Brad, putting up a great fight, coming so close. Man, what could have been? Scott, what's your sense? Who do you blame on that one?
Okay, so I've been here since I moved here in 1997, so I'm a newcomer. And I have consistently seen, when it comes to House races in the state of Wisconsin, Democrats get left behind by the National Democratic contingency, DCCC, the House Majority PAC. I mean, they're not even putting up fights against guys like, Brian Stile and Gallagher, because they're considered to be, in quote unquote safe seats, which is ridiculous, especially the way the first was redrawn. But when it came to the Brad Pfaff versus Van Orton race, the malpractice, any Democrat who donates to the DCCC who's from Wisconsin is a moron at this point, because they have never delivered for us. And this one is so offensive. Derek Van Orton was at the terrorist insurrection. He was on the main grounds. He lied about it. He was, he bragged in a book about sexually harassing women when he was in the military. He is on probation for trying to take a gun onto a plane. He attacked a teenage LGBTQ woman out in Western Wisconsin. And then I don't know if you guys know the story. He was in a library. And so he proceeded to then check out every LGBTQ book because they so offended him. He didn't want anybody to have access to it. And then on top of it, I'm forgetting one of the things, but these are all the things for this guy. Like, he's just wholly unfit. He refused to debate Brad Pfaff. Right. He was a chicken on top of it. And the idea that this is a seat that was held by Ron Kind for 26 years. I used to work for Ron, like way back, many, many, many years ago, after he was fully established as a member of Congress, but not vulnerable. So anything I did wouldn't get him thrown out of office. Right.
Very important.
And Brad worked for him. And the thing about it is, you had this terrorist insurrectionist up against Brad. Wasn't some guy who just fell off the turnip truck. He's a former aide to Kind. He was a former Obama appointee for agriculture. He's a state senator currently. And the idea that the DCCC and the House Majority PAC reneged on the commitment for $2 million in television in a race that was lost by a hair. It's just, and the thing that's so upsetting about it is, you didn't have to have some sort of nuanced policy debate over whose healthcare whose healthcare plan was better. You had a terrorist insurrectionist, and we were actually out there, and I helped film some ads, that Brad put up. We got we had these guys, 3 Vietnam veterans and a guy from Desert Storm, and we asked them their reaction to when they saw that Derek Van Orton was at the terrorist insurrection, that he's running for Congress. They wanted to tear his head off. One guy said something that I can't even repeat on air. And the idea, he was just there. He would have been he had to be one of the most vulnerable members. And it was a seat that Democrats held for 26 years. And they left Brad and they left Wisconsin high and dry. And I don't think that should ever be forgotten about it. And I know Mark Pocan was frustrated as hell about that. And he articulated, there was a story in the Journal Sentinel where both Mark and Congressional Representative Gwen Moore out of Milwaukee were both like, this is garbage. Ron Kind was angry about it, and then I got to pop off, so that was fun because, nobody's paying my bills out of the DCCC, and they failed us. They completely and totally failed us, And I hate to see a Democrat lose, especially in a tight race. But the head of the DCCC, Sean Maloney, actually lost his race in New York City, and there's some of us who unless that's the deciding vote, for keeping the House majority, good riddance, but that's a thing. It gets back to the first thing that you were talking about, Mike, which is we've got, Democrats have to have accountability towards these clowns. And that is using aspects like the radio, because every community doesn't have a newspaper anymore, but every county has a radio station. Everybody who turns on their radio dial can hear something, and providing that, accountability, not 3 weeks before the election when you just throw up a bunch of ads, but throughout the year, throughout the 2-year cycle, is something that Democrats are utterly and completely failing on. And I only say that because I had skin in the game, because at One Wisconsin Now, we did accountability, and we found stuff out about Republicans who were violating our values. And we got that into the press because it is important, because people who vote tend to be older, and those people still get their news from radio, from television, and from newspapers. And so leaving that cheddar on the table and not put something in there because you can't buy it, you got to get your people on the air. You got to get those contrasts made. You got to show the difference between them and us. That hasn't happened.
God, I don't want to interrupt this fine conversation, but I got a few more questions. Our fine guest, Scot Ross, for a few more minutes. Scott, a 2-parter to close out the segment. Gerrymandering. Does the state Supreme Court, and if we can just get someone who's not a conservative elected, could that change the outcome? And second part, citizen referendum. Scott, is it time in the state of Wisconsin for we the people to go lobby because this intransigent governance of gerrymandered Republicans against the Democratic governor means nobody's satisfied? Could we go lobby both sides for citizen referendums, binding sorts? Your thoughts, Scot Ross?
Okay, I'll take the first part first. The first part first is yes, I believe that the maps are so clearly unconstitutional that they will, that if we get a progressive court majority, that will be overturned. On your second thing, I'm a little more scared than you are, because referendum costs money. And, that scares me about whether or not given all the might that business has and the Republicans have, would Democrats be able to compete? That's not to say I don't think it's not a bad idea, because this government is completely and totally unresponsive to us, the legislature. But if we change the maps, that might change it too. So I'll hold it out. I'll hold out. You got some points, Mike.
Scot Ross, our pal, thank you so much once again, man. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a whole bundle, Scott. That was great.
Yep. Thank you. See you guys.
Yeah. Have a good day, man.
See you, Scott.
Bye.
I don't. That's why you're listening to me now. I'm Hawk, owner of Hawk's Bar and Grill. Come to Hawks on State and tell them you're there because the devil sent you. Then I can spend more money on ads and help Devil Radio keep Wisconsin from spiraling into post-apocalyptic Republican suckage. I mean, that's Iowa's job. Buy a round of Hawks and save Wisconsin one drink at a time.
Suck down drinks so we don't have to suck. Okay.
Join me, Stephanie Miller, and the entire Sexy Liberal Resistance every morning from 8 to 11 for the Stephanie Miller Show right here on 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. Listen live Monday through Friday on Devil Radio, Wisconsin's home for progressive news talk radio.
Weather brought to you by the Joint Chiropractic of Madison, where Back Friday is back now through the end of November. It's easy. Sign up for a package, get free bonus visits, and start feeling the way you want to. The Joint Chiropractic, convenient.
Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. The owner of Club Q, the Colorado Springs nightclub where 5 people were killed and 18 others were injured in a shooting this weekend, tells KRDO TV the club was seen as a safe place.
Giving people a sense of home, a sense of safeness, a sense of ability to come out, to be themselves, to not be harassed by others, and be able to find their gender, find their sexuality without the judgment of others.
Online court records show 22-year-old Anderson Lee Aldrich faces 5 murder charges, 5 charges of committing a bias-motivated crime causing bodily injury in the attack around midnight Saturday night. The charges are preliminary. Prosecutors have not filed them in court. A law enforcement official says the suspect used an AR-15 style semi-automatic weapon and a handgun, and additional ammunition magazines were recovered. 13 people remain hospitalized. I'm Tim McGuire.
We tried Dynovite for gut health and immune support, and after a couple of weeks, our little Gizmo was acting like a puppy again. His coat was shinier, he had a lot less scratching and shedding, and he seemed like his happy old self.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Get 10% off your next order of Dynovite nutritional supplements for dogs at Dynovite.com.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Need a great holiday gift for that special someone? Shop Untucked's Black Friday early access and grab the perfect style at up to 50% off. Untucked shirts are designed to be worn untucked. They keep him looking sharp and feeling comfortable. Save big on our iconic button-downs, super soft flannels, and cozy sweaters during our biggest sale of the year. Shop Untucked's Black Friday early access sale today for up to 50% off at untucked.com or 80+ stores. Untucked, shirts designed to be worn untucked.
This is Pat Kreitlow from Up North News. Gynecologist Dr. Kristen Lyerly has a succinct message for Assembly Speaker Robin Vos and other legislative Republicans.
Hey, get out of my exam room. Let me take care of my patient.
Specifically, she's commenting on Vos, indicating he could go along with slight exceptions to the state's 1849 near total abortion ban, but only if rape and incest victims get a police report, something most victims do not want to subject themselves to.
So how do I tell her, no, I can't provide the care that you need until you file a police report? And then she goes home and what happens? She doesn't get the care that she needs.
Governor Evers has already said such a limited exception is a non-starter, and new state Senate Democratic leader Melissa Agard told us last week.
There is no compromise when it comes to reproductive health and freedoms.
For more about the fight to restore women's health rights, join us for Up North News Radio, 6 to 8 a.m. here on the Civic Media Radio Network and Up North News W.
The Devil's Advocates. So relevant, they have one foot in tomorrow.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, rolling through the Happier Monday happy hour. Always happy when Scot Ross comes around.
Yeah.
Our sometimes Twitter offensive friend. Always ethical. Scot Ross, he's a friend of ours. Thanks, Scott. Dom, I got both of my feet right now in Polk County. I'm in Amery, Wisconsin. Up here, trying to change hearts and minds, make sure our facility is ready so we can roll out the 1260 AM WXCE. We've been on the air, Dom, but you really can't claim a community until you got your troops on the ground, boots on the ground in this.
Until you run a bar tab at the local tavern. You're really
I've done that all weekend. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's all business expense.
It is now.
That's for the accountant to figure out, Dom. Something we didn't reference before the weekend I'd like to get out here, but first, $6.6 billion budget surplus in the state of Wisconsin. It's amazing when a Democrat's in command. We've got massive surpluses under the last guy. What was Scott Walker's problem?
Well, he claimed he solved the $3.6 billion budget deficit, Crudy, but you and I both know that's not true.
Well, in what was his biggest remedy for what ailed the state of Wisconsin? It was Foxconn. How'd that work out for us? I mean, seriously, how was Foxconn?
Who? What?
Yeah, Foxconn. They don't.
The eighth wonder of the world. Yeah.
A $4.5 billion boondoggle. And I know the state hasn't actually expended all of that, but just the lost aspirational outcome, Dom. It was a joke. What else did Scott Walker do? Well, he never legalized marijuana. We know that cost us at least 10,000 jobs, about $200 million a year. But he also blocked the building of a casino, which would have created about 10,000 permanent jobs, a lot of tax revenue to the state of Wisconsin. And, they had offered to help replace the necessity of public financing for the Milwaukee Bucks. That cost us about $250 million, all because the failed former Republican governor, Scotty Wanker, wanted to run for president, and like 400 people in Iowa had written him a letter, please don't extend or pari-mutuel gambling, because, Adelson, he'll write you a big check. But Dom, what was Scott Walker's big promise? Create a lot of jobs,
yes.
right?
Oh, 200,000 jobs? Yes, 200,000 jobs.
Maybe it's 200. Did it matter? He didn't do it over 2 times.
Whatever it was, he broke that promise.
He broke that promise. Do you see what the BLS numbers were for last year, Dom, here in the state of Wisconsin?
No, tell me.
58,800 non-farm jobs created and 54,600 private sector jobs year over year. And last year, a year ago at this time, I'm not saying the pandemic was fully over, but I mean, we weren't in lockdown mode a year ago at this time, Dom. We were not. We were beyond the pandemic.
Yes, that's correct.
So the data shows that Wisconsin's unemployment rate is 3.3%, and the labor participation rate is 65.3%. Now, compare that with the national average, Dom, low 62s. So Wisconsin almost 4%, if you round up, 4% greater than the national on labor participation rate. So, we're pretty damn close to fully employed here in the state of Wisconsin, right?
Yes.
And here was what I would point out. What was Scott Walker solve? A manufacturer tax credit, manufacturing agricultural tax credit.
Yes.
I believe massive industries, think of these industrialists. Let's call them, these Ron Johnson Family Trust. And they get to claim their manufacturers, and they set themselves up under Wisconsin tax law for a 0.3% tax liability. 0.3%, not 3%, which would still be astronomically low for a very profitable corporation. They're at 0.3%. That's what your buddy Ron Johnson benefits from, the newly reelected self-serving senator from the state of Wisconsin.
Man, I want to pay a 0.3% tax rate too.
Well, you got to have a special designation. You got to be Republican friendly, and you got to be a manufacturer agricultural interest. But as we pointed out many times, Tom, what was the benefit? Well, they said, well, look at how many jobs we didn't lose, right? A disprovable thing. You can't quantify that.
Right.
Statistically,
a measure you can't prove or disprove.
I feel like we kept a lot of jobs because of my grandiose tax giveaway to rich manufacturers. That was the Scott Walker solve for everything, a tax cut for the rich. Well, I haven't always loved Governor Tony Evers, recently reelected, but here's what I will say, Dom, is I've been out here in the communities, like I said, I feel like I'm touching 72 counties all around the state of Wisconsin. But as I go to the main streets, little hometowns, guess what? Main streets are thriving in this state, Dom. There are a lot of new businesses that came out of the pandemic, people that quit their jobs and said, you know what? I'll do it myself. And with a $10,000 Main Street incentive grant, I forget exactly what they call it, the bounce back grant, $100 million has been invested all around the state of Wisconsin in startups, in brand new businesses. Are some going to fail? Hell yeah, they will. But the manufacturing interest over all of the manufactured tax breaks, the hundreds and billions of dollars that we as a state have failed to collect from the richest manufacturing interest in the state, has failed to create jobs. And Tony Evers, through this specific policy, putting 10 grand in the hands of little businesses, Dom, I'm telling you what, man, it has gotten very hard to find a little vacant storefront in hometown Wisconsin right now. I like the business on Main Street, Dom. Guess what? So do a lot of other small businesses, and they have not only been inspired by this $10,000 grant, they have taken a big risk, because being an entrepreneur, that's a scary thing. It's a lot scarier than cashing a paycheck. But there are so many Wisconsinites that have done that. In Amery, where I'm sitting right now, they have had 35 applicants for that $10,000 grant, and over 31 have been accepted. That is $310,000 poured in to the main street of a town of 2,200, Dom. And you know what? Good luck finding real estate on Main Street in Amery.
Right. That's excellent. 844-967-2789. It's great to hear that. And the investment, quote unquote, the lack of revenue received through this manufacturing and agribusiness tax credit, not only was it not something that created the jobs they said was going to create, but it also blew the budget. What they said was going to be $100 to $200 million, and that'll be like $350 million. It was way over budget. And what did the Republicans do to address that?
Nothing.
Too bad. It's okay. We won't worry about that. It is stunning. That's a great point, Crudy, and a great perspective. I appreciate that. 844-967-2789.
It's playing out all across the state, Dom. That is the clearest thing I'm seeing is vibrant Main Street, little hometown businesses being invested in by the government of the state of Wisconsin. Kudos to Tony Evers and his administration.
Heath from Madison, Wisconsin. You are up. Thank you for calling, Heath. Happy Monday. What do you got for us?
Hey, guys. Hey,
Hey,
I just wanted to call and correct you for a minute.
All right. Thank you, Heath. Good to hear from you. No, go ahead, man.
You must be Dom. You couldn't be corrected, Crudy. What's the correction do, sir? What did we get wrong?
You forgot. You didn't do anything wrong. You just forgot something. I want to pile on here on Walker. The $65 million, remember, we didn't get when he canceled the already paid for high-speed rail lines.
Yes.
And the rails that would have been fixed. Yeah,
well, let me correct you, sir. It was $900 million that he said no to, and then he put the taxpayers on the hook for the Talgo settlement, which was over $50 million. because Scott Walker said we, the taxpayers, couldn't afford ongoing cost of maintenance of approximately $2 million a year. He blew more than that, not buying the Talgo cars.
That's right, Crudy. Heath, what do you say about that?
Yeah, well, and right. And I think that's the 65 I was talking about. So,
Yeah.
So I guess we're 15 years into the 35 years it would have taken to pay off the $2 million a year.
Right.
Scott Walker screw up 15 years ago. Thanks.
Heath,
again,
not only
Scott
that,
Walker.
here's what still plays out in this part of the state. I'm in Amery, Wisconsin, outmarket Minneapolis, but a very rural part of the state. Broadband. There was a federal investment offered in broadband. In 2010, Scott Walker gave it back. Scott Walker said, we don't want your Obama money, and refused to take and make investment in broadband. But when you get in rural Wisconsin, they got to listen to the radio, man, because you can't stream it.
Yeah, this is the problem. I mean, you guys talk about it every day, but the every decision they make, Republicans, is about ideology and not about helping Wisconsinites. It's so clear with every single one of these things. So yeah, thanks to you guys for what you do. But next time, make sure you give Scott Walker both 16-inch guns, please.
All right.
I would need 2 hours each and every day to Scott Walker bash.
We used to do that, and then he got beat by Tony Evers, so we haven't really had to do that a whole lot, thankfully. But thank you for listening. He appreciate it, man.
Well, he wasn't a failed gubernatorial candidate until after he was a failed presidential candidate.
Oh, he was always a failed governor, whether or not he was a candidate.
But Dom, I wonder when he's been getting paid by the Nazi youth organization, the Reagan youth, whatever they call themselves. And of course, I hope he's getting a piece of the Reagan
Ranch
action where he sells often from the San Salito branch where he sells online.
Hey man, the band's going to be signing CDs in the back. Pick up a shirt and hang out, man. That's how you do it.
But at some point, his contract runs out. What's Scott Walker's next ambition? I bet he's coming back. I bet he challenges Tony Evers again, or maybe, although the last time around he said he didn't want to be a senator. Can you see Senator Wanker?
No,
Tammy Evers on the ballot in
absolutely
2 years.
not. Come on, I don't. Now he probably has the ego to want to do that, but I don't think Scott Walker would leave the Young America. What's it called? The Young America Foundation. As long as checks keep coming, man. And I don't know, maybe they consider him. Maybe he's doing a good job. Maybe it's just a payoff. I don't know. But why would you leave that job with that check to go do something?
You trade it all for just a little more.
Give it all away for just a little more. Give all our callers away for just a few more. 844-967-2789. Just kidding. Mark from Sussex, you are next. Welcome, Mark. What do you got for us?
Hey, Mark.
Well, I just wanted to ask your colored guest their question to comment on the FTX. But first of all, where did he try to contact Charlie Seitz? Because Charlie hasn't been in the Milwaukee area for over 5 years.
Yeah, that's true. Scott Ross has long been he tried to contact him when he was at WTMJ, and he would pillar his outfit, One Wisconsin Now, and of course he would seek equal time and wouldn't get it because that's not how Charlie or right-wing talk radio works.
6 years ago, he's talking about.
We're talking right now, man. What do you got to say that's more current than that?
No, he said he tried contacting Charlie Seitz's radio station. That's 6 years ago.
Yes, and the structure and the format of right-wing talk radio hasn't changed in 6 years, Mark.
But okay, so I wanted him to comment about the FTX crap that's going on and the millions and millions of dollars that have gone to the Democratic Party on that.
Well, he's not here, unfortunately, Mark. So how about you comment on it? What do you think?
I think it's just another typical huge, rich liberal that's donating money to a campaign. And I'm not saying that Republicans don't do this, but at least I understand that both parties do this. He's calling all these guys cowards because they're throwing in money, this and that. And yet he will not even address the situation on the Democratic side.
Well, Mark, I think you and I should agree on this point. I think it's corrupting on both sides of the ledger. I'd probably vote for more Democrats than you would, sir, but I don't like to hear my Democrats are accepting grandiose donations through black and dark money groups. That's not good for democracy, sir.
Thanks for the call, Mark.
acknowledge that.
844-967-2789. We will be right back.
I love this song. I love nachos.
Loving everything? You might be buzzed.
You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council. When might you be buzzed? When you suddenly love everything.
You guys, I love this song. I love these nachos. I love our kickball league. Oh, I love this guy.
What's your name?
You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
I love your car. Is this real leather?
Warning, listening to the devil's advocates may expose you to opposing views.
We've mentioned, inflation is going to be an issue. Let me ask you this. What would you like to see Donald Trump do if you were here? What did you suggest Biden do to address the inflationary pressures we're facing right now?
Well, I can't tell you that because that would be something you could counter and defeat Trump with, or the Republican Party. So tell you.
You think Trump's taking strategy from you on talk radio, Lou?
I mean, you're no Kid Rock, Lou.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
What grows in the forest? Trees? Sure. Know what else grows in the forest? Our imagination, our sense of wonder, and our family bonds grow too. Because when we disconnect from this and connect with this, we reconnect with each other. The forest is closer than you think. Find a forest near you and start exploring at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council. What grows in the forest? Our imagination and our family bonds. The forest is closer than you think. Find a forest near you at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling devil's advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, the last segment of the day. If you got something to say, hit us up right now, 844-967-2789.
Dominic, I don't mind when a guy seemingly disagrees with us, right? Mark from Sussex thinks he's calling us out. I don't like when tech billionaires, I don't like when crypto billionaires, I don't like when hardware or ABC supply billionaires have an outsized influence over the body politic when they can give. In the case, Scot Ross referenced the widow Hendricks, Diane Hendricks, ABC Supply Corporation, biggest self-made billionaire woman in the state of Wisconsin. She gave $9.4 million singularly in support of Ron Johnson in the last, month of the campaign. She probably gave way more than that over the course of the campaign. The U-line certainly did. Well, I don't care if it's them or Steven Spielberg giving money to our buddy running for Secretary of State, Doug LaFollette. Now, I'm not saying Doug would ever be corrupted by the grandiose give from the ET guy, but I'm telling you, it's not good. The difference is Scot Ross and guys like me and Dom, at least I'll speak for me, we've been trying to cap and limit the contributions of the rich and the influence it has since there was a Citizens United, since Alito sat in the Supreme Court chambers or the well of the House during the State of the Union and shook his head no at Obama.
Right.
Yes. It's been corrupting to both parties. So don't feel like it's just one side.
Well, and even the numbers that you quote, that's all we know, man. You can give to a 501c3 or a 501c4 and not know. I mean, we
make it tax deductible.
Well, if it's a 501c3, absolutely right. You can write it off on the taxes, give it to a 501c3. and they can, play the games, and that's what's done. And certainly, no matter, politics, the money is corrupting. Period. We can agree on that no matter your political perspective. And I think what we all want is the will of the people to be done. And if Mark or any of our other conservative callers want to have a discussion, an argument on policy and politics, absolutely, we are down with that. You want to talk about abortion? Should abortion be legal, Mark? I think it absolutely should be. Who are you to tell a woman what she can or cannot do with her body? You know what I mean? Those kinds of conversations we can have. But the money thing is just so bending. It's like gravity, man. It's tough to get a handle on. And every time someone does try to get a handle on it, it's like water, man. It finds a way. But all that means is we got to be some good plumbers, man, and find a way to plug it. We, the people, decide this stuff, man, individually. And we should not be subject to the whims of all the billionaires just shoving stuff, in our faces, on our TV screens, and our tablets, and our computers. Come on, we need to limit that. What's the problem with that? 844-967-2789. Andy from Beaver Dam. What's the problem with that, Andy?
I don't know. Everything you guys have said tonight is true. I don't buy from Liz Uline because she writes a little love letter in the back of the catalog about how, oh my God, you guys should be, we were all Republicans or whatever, which I can't understand that in business. But I got a question as we get near the end of the hour do you still have Alliance Crudy with 950?
Hell yeah, man. They're listening right now. KTNF 950 AM.
Okay. Because I was wondering, when you were talking about Amery, that's not going to blast into, that's not going to blast over the Minnesota.
Amery
going to be
will not. No, we're not going to step on our existing coverage area. But when WXCE is here, I'll give you the what for. WXCE will point towards Duluth, Minnesota, with about 5,000 watts of power. As soon as we put the new transmitter in middle of next month. Hayward, Wisconsin will radiate with 5,000 watts of power all across northwestern Wisconsin. Between the two signals, we got you covered in the Northwoods.
Thanks for the call, Andy. 844-967-2789. Let's see. CJ, you are next. Happy Monday, CJ. Welcome. What do you got for us?
Hey there, gentlemen. I love it when you point out, but you failed to point out that your party is better at lying, cheating, and spending money right across party lines, $44 million, supporting candidates.
Are we talking campaign money? Campaign money.
Primary.
I have no doubt that there was some strategery going on, and I don't agree with that strategery. And the Democratic Party has gotten just as good as the Republicans at cashing those campaign checks from the billionaires, CJ. You sound a little envious.
You're better at cheating.
Cheating how, CJ?
Those are the rules of the game, and Republicans actually.
Yeah, man. Wait. Following, and I'm not down, man. I'd like to see money limited in this endeavor. But how is engaging in the same, activity as the Republicans under law cheating?
That's the thing. You guys are better at finding loopholes to cheat. And even Crudy.
Can you give any example of that, CJ? CJ, can you give an example of that loophole you refer to?
Answer, I guess not.
I guess not, man. Thanks for trying, dude. All we can do is try. And I do appreciate it. Listen, I think money in politics is something that goes across party lines. I think this is something we can all agree on. It is corrupting. It is too much of an influence, and we should do whatever we can to try to limit that. Well, I think we can all agree on that, can't we? Most of us, and certainly perhaps not Ron Johnson does not agree with that. And certainly there are people who do not.
Money is free speech, Dom.
Sure, to some degree, but free speech is free speech until you yell fire in a crowded theater and people die rushing to the exits.
Well,
and when there's no fire in the theater, it doesn't matter. Even if money is free speech, it can still be regulated like free speech, man.
Well, that's not a bad point. Dr. Zobin, who I took mass communications and I believe copy editing from, he might agree with your assessment.
I'm just saying,
a little worried where you were going there.
Come on, man. I appreciate it, but these rights all have limitations, right? The right to bear arms, you don't get a Tommy gun, right? The right to free speech, you don't get to yell fire in a crowded theater when there's not one and people die because of that speech. There are consequences and responsibilities.
Not on Twitter. Buddy, we got to thank our guests tonight. They included Scot Ross, the ethical firebrand Scot Ross, and also our friend Don Browne from This Week in Waukesha, giving us special live coverage from the
thank you, Don. Appreciate it. He stopped in. Good cat.
Tonight, the 1-year anniversary of the tragedy. Thank you all for listening to the Devil's Advocates. I'll be in studio tomorrow with Judge Chris Taylor. Please join us on the radio.
So good. I got a year.
When it comes to computers, Madison Computer Works has been the leader in computer help, service, and support for more than 35 years. Our friendly techs have the expertise to help you choose the right computer for your needs. We make it easy to get a new computer by moving your data, reinstalling programs, and setting up your printers and email for you. Our competitive pricing and awesome tech support make moving to a new computer painless and affordable. Whether servicing your old computer or buying a new one, we'll help you do it right. Madison Computer Works, computers that work for you.
Knucklehead CBD and Vapes is now online at knuckleheads.shop. Step into your favorite smoke shop without leaving your home. Find grinders, papers, Delta 8 and more, all from your computer or phone. With free shipping on all orders over $50, you'll be sure to find exactly what you like. You can also order for in-store pickup so there's no wait. Knucklehead CBD and Vapes, located at 520 State Street in Madison. Order online today at knuckleheads.shop. With free shipping on all orders over $50, you'll be sure to find exactly what
you are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the Devil Radio app.
AP News, I'm Tim McGuire. Court records show prosecutors are considering hate crime charges in addition to 5 counts of murder for the 22-year-old suspect in the Colorado Springs nightclub shooting. The mother of bartender Daniel Aston, who was killed, says she doesn't understand the hatred against the LGBTQ community.
They don't hurt anybody. They're just normal folk. You know, most of them have day jobs. And I just don't understand why it would hurt anybody. It doesn't hurt anybody, you know. It didn't never hurt us.
There are questions about the suspect allegedly threatening his mother last year, and if that should have triggered Colorado's red flag laws, which allow police to seize weapons from an individual who is considered a threat against others. An SUV crashed through the front window of an Apple store in Hingham, Massachusetts, killing one person, a 65-year-old man, and injuring 16 others. Police are investigating, but haven't said if the crash was accidental or intentional. A Georgia congressional representative is let back on Twitter.
The new owner of Twitter, Elon Musk, has reinstated the personal account of Georgia Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. She had been banned in January for posting misinformation about COVID-19. Last month, she criticized traditional media.
You've lied about me and assassinated my character to the American people.
Twitter's also just reinstated former President